Hello and welcome. My name is Ted Holsey. I'm Vice President of Marketing at eFolder and your host for today's webinar event. Welcome to our product launch webinar for the new Replibit BDR appliances. Today's topic and title is MSP meets FastFlash, new Replibit BDR appliances. Today we're joined by Philip Long, CEO of Business Information Solutions. Before we go through today's agenda, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar, along with the slides, will be distributed after the webinar has concluded to those who registered for the event. We'll also put a recording of the webinar up on YouTube in case you want to share it with colleagues or peers. We've put all attendees in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion for today's event either by streaming it to your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Your questions are strongly encouraged throughout today's discussion. We have planned a special Q&A section at the end, but you may submit your questions as we go along. We'll try to address them on the fly. So let's look real quick at the agenda. The first thing I'll do is introduce Philip Long, our guest for today's webinar. And then I'll give you a brief introduction to the Replibit platform. We're not going to go very deep, because I'm going to want to get back right into the conversation with Philip about his experience with Replibit and where he's taken BIS with the Replibit platform. And then we'll wrap up today's discussion with a bit more product detail on the actual appliances, the pricing, the availability, and how you can get started, whether you're an existing eFolder or eFolder partner or somebody just looking to get started with us. So with that, let me welcome our guest, Philip Long. Philip is he's the CEO of Business Information Solutions. Philip is a longtime eFolder partner. He deploys several of the different eFolder solutions in his business. He's a member of our partner council as well, so he's a longtime friend and somebody always we really welcome and are excited to have on these webinars. So Philip, thanks a lot for joining us for today.
Well, Ted, it's my pleasure to be with you, and I appreciate our partnership and all that eFolder has really done in way of helping me grow my business. And just want to say, glad to be here.
Great. So let's share with our audience today a little bit about Business Information Solutions and where you guys located, what markets do you focus on, your value proposition to your clients, that sort of thing.
Sure. We are located in extreme South Alabama, and pretty much our market covers from about Gulfport, Mississippi over to the other side of Pensacola, Florida. So we've got several kind of small cities that we work, and some areas that are adjacent to those cities, but really probably 25-30 miles up the coast, and just that strip of I don't know, even total mileage is probably maybe 150, 200 miles here on the coast. And primarily what we really have focused on and kind of what our company has evolved into is what we call BIS Technology Group. And I do some consulting under the Veritas Consulting logo, and then of course we have our core IT company that we started back in 2011. We have a digital marketing division where we do kind of like marketing as a service, I would call it, and then we also have an office equipment company where we're an authorized Kia, Sierra, and Canon partner. So ideally, we do a lot of cross-selling within the groups, and we try to land and expand, I guess, is one of our kind of biggest strategies, really. And then, of course, we want to make life easy. Kind of our tagline for BIS Technology Group is business made easy. And I'm sure a lot of MSPs out there, and a lot of times you're waiting on somebody else to take up that piece. It's a copier guy, and you don't have the login to the console to do what you need to do. And so that's kind of where we are, and the more pieces that we contain, actually the more effective and the more efficient we are, and the better we solve the client's needs. That's pretty much who we are and what we do.
Okay, and then maybe share a little bit about, how big are you guys in terms of either number of clients you serve or number of employees, that sort of thing?
Sure. We still have some, because of the way things are broken out and not everybody's a client. If I added up all the clients between all the businesses, it'd be a very large number, over 1,700. But, primarily our focus really has gotten down to about 220 clients is where we're trying to really dig in deep, and we're trying to add those types of clients. We call it a buyer persona, and what we're kind of focusing on is to get that particular one that meets that persona and land and expand. It's kind of one of the strategies that we're on. But we have about 50 employees total amongst all the divisions. In the IT side, there's about 25, and we'll do just under $3 million in the IT side this year. So not a large MSP for to a lot of scales, but for our market, we're a leader here because cities on either side of us, are Mobile, Alabama, which has about 200,000, and then we've got Pensacola that I don't exactly have the count, but it's going to be in that neighborhood of probably 180,000 or so. But we are in the 7th fastest growing market in the nation right now. So we're seeing a lot of growth, but it's small type businesses is pretty much what we have here to offer, for us. And but we've really devised our solution stack, and eFolder's been a big part of that, around that style of market. And we have a lot of dimes. We don't have a lot of dollars, but we got a lot of dimes, and it's a lot harder to fail when you have a lot of dimes, I guess.
Okay, well, that's great background on BIS. So what I want to do now is just make sure we've got kind of a level set of knowledge from everybody on the phone about Replibit. Really what we're celebrating the past couple days is the launch of the new Replibit BDR appliances. But Replibit is a company that eFolder announced the acquisition of back in June. Philip, you guys will get into it in a little detail, but BIS was using Replibit before eFolder acquired the company. And what I want to make sure we're doing is we're going to dig in a little deeper today in today's discussion on the appliances themselves, but I want to make sure everybody on the phone has a good understanding before we get into that kind of partner story of what Replibit is. And so let me just give a quick elevator pitch on that, and then we'll get back to the conversation with Philip. But Replibit is an end-to-end business continuity platform that's designed for managed service providers. So really what makes the reason we call it a platform is because it's very flexible for MSP deployment, and it includes everything you need to do a turnkey business continuity solution for your clients, or to bake business continuity into your managed service offering so that it's a pillar of what you do. So Replibit includes the software that you put on servers and workstations to do those actual backup jobs, those image-based backup jobs. It includes the appliance software or the appliance you can source directly from eFolder that you run locally, where you back up the data and you can do an on-site recovery in the context of an everyday disaster. And then we give partners the choice of either vaulting the data to either eFolder or to yourself, to, of course, provide that off-site backup capability and the ability to do a recovery in the cloud in the case of a worst-case disaster. So that's kind of what Replibit is, and everything's kind of included in the platform. And so, what really makes the solution unique is that MSPs can turn to eFolder now and source the software. You can turn to us to vault to our cloud environment. There's a global management capability baked into the product that allows you to manage all of the vaults you have deployed. And then last but not least, we now have a turnkey appliance product family that completes the overall solution and makes it so you can get everything from eFolder in one go. At the same time, we still allow partners to either build their own appliances or to vault to themselves, and leaving that, making sure that that flexibility of the platform is there is pretty key. So that's all I wanted to say, just to give some overall context. I do want to remind everybody, if you have questions, you can go ahead and enter them in the GoToWebinar platform, and we can answer your questions on the fly. But let's kind of like rewind just a little bit, and just get back to a conversation with Philip here. So Philip, what were you doing? Kind of talk to us a little bit about your journey with Bacon Business Continuity into your your overall managed service offering, and where have you been?
Sure. We started off with a local company here out of Mobile that had a product, and it really, what it got down to was that the way we sell our products, traditional MSP, if it breaks or doesn't work, we fix it at no extra cost. And quite frankly, that product was breaking too often, and our labor cost was high in not so much the licensing for the product, but getting it to keep it working. So we were looking for a new product. We ran into eFolder at an old MSPU event in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Jan Spring brought me on board, and just really, I mean, just a great onboarding, the way that she handled everything, and it's just really a pleasure to do business and get started with you guys. And we took off. We were doing just file and folder, and of course this is some years ago, before the whole BDR thing, the imaging really came about. And then shortly after that, Shadow Protect really was getting it together, and we had moved over to Shadow Protect, and had multiple servers backed up throughout the area using Shadow Protect. That's pretty much where we were before Replibit.
Okay, and what was your experience with building the business around Shadow Protect, and what were you experiencing, and why did Replibit seem like a good choice?
Yeah, the thing about Replibit, again, we're all trying to control our cost, and the thing about Shadow Protect was that the way that it does its chain, at that point it was endless chain, so that we were having to go out on site about once a year and reseed all of our BDRs. And that was just a lot of labor cost that was involved in that. And the way that Replibit came about is really they called me, and this is before you guys had made the acquisition, and they called me and did some demos, and I liked the I call it the reverse chain, or the way that it handles, much more likely to recover last night's backup than the first night's backup. The way Shadow Protect does is the way I explain it. And so that seemed appealing. Then we were building our own BDRs, and to save a Microsoft server license, that was another savings, because it runs basically on a Linux distro. It was something to look at, and basically we had deployed it, and it was reliable, and it didn't take a lot of upkeep to keep it going. And there's some other features. I like how it sends you the screenshots of the server, and things like that make you more makes you more assured that you're actually getting a backup.
Right, and so just to talk about kind of chain-based backups, you needed to go out and do the reseed exercise once a year. To kind of save money, or are you just getting concerned that you then had this chain-based backup that was highly dependent upon that initial full and going all the way back, and that you had some risk there? I mean, what was the need to go out and kind of reseed once a year?
Really, both of those that you mentioned, and even just storage space on the particular device. A lot of times the device would begin, the BDR that was on site would begin to get full, so you'd need to basically start over And of course, the risk of hoping that, you know, everything went well with the change. We'd had a few incidents where it was very difficult. Never lost files, but it took a lot longer than it should have, and, you know, things of that nature. And, you know, the risk was there, the size was there, and of course, you know, back in those days, paying by storage and buying storage, it was the cost was there too. So really, all three of those.
Right. But you know, but mitigating it wasn't free. I mean, rolling a truck to every client location and having to do the receipt exercise. I mean, it's usually one or two usually two visits to deploy the job and then come back and pick everything up. I mean, it's a pretty costly endeavor.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it definitely was costly, and that's another reason why Replibit, you know, was initially, we looked at it and we're like, wow, it had, you know, some solutions to those problems that, you know, pretty much anybody who's working Shadow Protect and, you know, traditional BDRs, they face that.
Now, one thing, just so actually, one of the questions that just hopped into the Q&A log, Lolan asks, or he says, with Shadow Protect, you can sometimes do backups without a dedicated appliance. You know, you can use the eFolder backup agent to, you know, save locally to like a NAS device if the client doesn't require on-site recovery. Would you ever do that sort of deployment, or in every case when you're using Shadow Protect, would you have a BDR appliance in place?
We have done that occasionally. And a lot of times what we had problems with, and this is just the nuts and bolts of what we ran into, is that the devices like the NASs would not hold up to the rigor of so much reading and writing that was happening to it. So we had a lot of failures, and we kind of swore off of it just because. Now, we found some particular NASs, I believe in the Synology family, that could handle it, but they were kind of expensive, and so we pretty much we always put in a server just because of the ability to restore on the server and have it as basically a backup appliance that was ready to go, and the trouble that we had with the durability and being able to keep up with some of the NASs that we tried.
Okay, and it's like the Achilles heel at any time is kind of the labor and the hassles you're going to have to go through when you have to maybe, you know, go out and rip stuff out and put in another NAS that's working again. I mean, all that labor is where you can really eat up your margins in business continuity, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing this 17 years, and if there's, you know, I'm pretty, you know me well, so you know I'm not the brightest guy in the drawer maybe, but one thing that I really focus on is, you know, do not remain in fireman mode. That is, I preach that constantly, because when you're in fireman mode, you can't do anything else, and anything that will touch it once and be done with it is probably worth twice the you know, the cost of, you know, going cheap and going whatever usually hurts you. And, you know, I start that off early on in the sales process so that I don't, what I call, engineer myself a headache.
That's right. And do you find that you're able to take, are you able to take, you know, Replibit down to your, I mean, how do you take, let me do this a different way, I mean, how do you take Replibit down to even some of your smallest clients? How do you have that conversation, or how do you standardize on something and bake it into your managed service offering? Because that's kind of a friction point we often see with partners, is there's kind of those smaller clients. How do you get BDRs deployed into every single client?
Yeah, the deal that I do, and I mean, we have a very set sales process, and it requires 3 visits by design, because what I'm trying to do is really what I call build enough equity in my account so that when I say, all right, it's time to sign on the line that's dotted, I have that stroke to be able to influence them. But specifically of course, all of them have the undertone of this, but specifically in the second meeting when we're doing the systems evaluation, I go over a sheet and I have them work numbers for me. I do them for them, but in front of them, and leave it with them about the cost of downtime. and I do a calculation that's relatively simple. No, I know back in the day they had all kind of calculations that could justify anything, but really mine is I'm basically working things off of profit margin and the cost of labor on 2080 off 2,080 hours a year, 52 40-hour weeks, and I do some very rudimentary numbers, and that's how I justify what I do. And I mean, I make it very clear that every decision I make, everything I make is to mitigate risks, protect them, and try to keep them up, and so that they're functioning. And I start that early on in the conversation in the sales process, just because we all know that any objection you're going to get, you want to handle it before, if you handle it in a positive manner on the front end of the sale, it's not going to snag you on the back end. So that's pretty much how we do it. We talk about cost of downtime and the importance and the true cost of data way early in the sale.
Okay. Okay, great. And then talk to us a little bit about, how broadly you've now deployed Replibit.
Pretty broadly. I mean, every new deal I get, I go there. I pretty much went back, and there's a few shadow protects that are still out there that we just, they were on new pieces of hardware, so I haven't gone back and swapped them. But as soon as that hardware gets a little more age on it, I'll flip them all to Replibit. And every new product we do, and I think that, and I should have this number, I think we're about 130 servers on Replibit currently.
Okay. Okay. And let's kind of change gears, talk a little bit about your experience with the Replibit BDR appliances. You guys were a beta tester, so you don't have a ton of field deployment experience, but talk to us a little bit about what your tech's experience during the beta, and what are your initial impressions?
Yeah, slick. I think it's really a slick product, and I think especially, and I haven't really, again, I haven't tested out in the field a whole bunch, and I haven't put the numbers to it in every scenario, but man, for small, that little box for small offices is awesome because it doesn't have a big footprint, and it's really a very powerful machine. And again, small footprint, comes out of the box, the license is already provisioned, boom, you plug it in. It's as close to plug and play as you're going to get in this type of world, and it looks good, and my guys loved it. They want to move all of our stuff to that box.
Okay, well let's get into it. Let's tell people. Let me tell people a little bit more about the product lineup itself, and then we'll have more time for Q&A for Philip, and just more questions from the audience. So we're keeping an eye on the Q&A log. So Philip mentioned a couple things that we're doing. So one question everybody might ask is, why did eFolder introduce an appliance lineup? And I think the answer is, we wanted to make this whole solution turnkey. We wanted everything to be available to partners: software, cloud, management, and the appliance, all from a single vendor, and we wanted it to be an integrated experience. So, and Philip mentioned something that's pretty key. When you as an MSP actually order one of the Replibit BDR appliances, you give us the key networking information of the client deployment where you're going to have this deployed, and you pre-configure all that information into the licensing portal when you purchase the appliance. And this appliance will then come to you pre-configured, and literally all you need to do is plug it into a network, and it talks directly to the Replibit vault that's already been provisioned and is ready to start doing backups. So what we're trying to do is make this a complete solution, make it more turnkey, make it more plug and play. But let's talk a little bit about these appliances. There's 3 products, 3 models in the lineup. The entry-level model, as Philip mentioned, is really small footprint. It's literally less than an 8x8 square. This thing is the most powerful and reliable BDR appliance on the market. This thing has got 4 SSD drives in it, an Intel system on a chip, which is the Intel Skylake i5 processor. This thing just screams in terms of performance. Really small form factor, affordable yet powerful, and you can virtualize several servers and workstations on this appliance in the context of an everyday disaster. And our strategy on this appliance is to make it so that literally partners can take business continuity into every single account. And I'll talk later about the licensing on the service and how it's we've improved that, made it more turnkey, made it simpler to understand. But the idea here is, we hear a lot from partners about how do I get business continuity plugged into my smallest accounts. And the answer is, really for, the price of a couple cell phone packages a month, retail to your clients, you can protect their workstations and servers and eliminate a whole host of different headaches and problems you're going to have down the line as the one throat to choke, for that client's uptime and the protection of their data. So that's really the strategy of the Mini, is to make it so that it's powerful enough to do all the backup jobs, to be able to do on-site virtualization, but it's also small enough, affordable enough, so you can literally take it to any small business and say, look, we've got you covered. If you step up from the Mini, the next in line is the Pro, and this is a more modular platform. She's not a beauty, let's put it that way, but this thing again can pack up to 128 gigabytes of RAM. This thing scales up to 15 terabytes. You can deploy it. It's got a field upgradable capability, so you can send it out into the field with 3 terabytes, and as the client grows and their needs grow, you can upgrade the appliance, and it's really easy to do. I mean, that little keyhole there on the left is just, you open that front door, you can slide in the drives. Now, what I do want to mention is that all of these appliances run SSD drives that have a special build of eFolder software that implement our FastFlash and Replibit technologies. And so, the Replibit product line can still be deployed by partners. You can still build your own appliances, but what we really decided is we wanted just rock solid, lightning fast performance on these appliances. And so there's a lot of software technologies that have gone into engineering these appliances so that the Replibit work, when you go to virtualize a server on these appliances, it's lightning fast, and that these appliances will have, with an all SSD architecture, will have long-term durability. Because, one of the things about SSD drives, I've got a slide later, is that SSD drives, if you're not using the right kinds of drives, if you're not doing the right software over provisioning on the drives, they have some issues with durability. And so that's one thing we've really been attentive to in the engineering of these appliances. So that's the Pro, kind of the middle of the line, and then kind of a similar performance characteristics, but in a rack-mounted form factor, is what we call the Replibit rack. So again, 128 gigabytes of RAM, scales up to 18 terabytes of storage on the appliance, and again, implements our FastFlash and Replibit technologies. So just a couple comments about the technologies, and then a little bit on pricing and availability, and then we'll get back to kind of Q&A. So, all SSD, we think this is like the wave of the future, and it's now. I mean, SSDs just deliver any kind of computing workload. They're going to deliver a far better experience and performance, whether we're talking about a workstation or a laptop or server-grade workloads. But the problem with SSDs is there are issues around durability if you're running the wrong kind of workload on the wrong kind of SSD. And so what we implement is enterprise-class SSDs with special software capabilities that solve these durability problems that you may experience over time and deliver you the level of IOPS you want to get out of these appliances. And so those technologies are pretty key. And let me just make a couple comments on those. we've really already talked about Replibit's chain-free backup technology. Just a couple more comments on that. You know, Philip talked about how the big problem with chain-based backups is they're unreliable, and they just introduce a lot of labor and headaches into most MSP practices, because you can have failed system recoveries, you can have, you know, data growth either on the appliance or in the cloud, which ends up hitting your pocketbook. But really oftentimes the solution you have to throw at the problem is labor. Replibit is a chain-free backup technology, so every recovery point is globally unique and can be virtualized. So if you can go in and arbitrarily delete recovery points, you can do more flexible and nimble retention policies. But the way the technology works is you're never going to run the risk that you know, you're going to have a backup that doesn't work because of a chain dependency problem. And you're never going to have to like roll trucks to go back out there and do a reseed exercise because of chain-free backup technology. Now, related to the appliances themselves, we implement two different kinds of technology. One is for kind of speed and durability on SSD, which we call FastFlash, and the second is Durabit. So we kind of already talked a little bit about FastFlash SSDs. It's special software that you know, gives us really great IOPS performance on these drives and long-term durability. And then Durabit is really around data protection on these appliances. And it's really five layers of data redundancy and protection on the SSD drives themselves. So it's at the kind of the base level. You have like power loss protection. You know, sometimes if you have a brownout state with an SSD drive, you'll have data corruption if the drive powers down in a sloppy state. And these have special capacitors that prevent that from happening. All the way up to what we call, you know, a data corruption prevention. And so 5 layers, software RAID across the 3 SSDs and the Mini and beyond up the lineup. So Durabit is really all about protecting the data. And again, it's all about making sure you have very reliable system recovery. So if you kind of look at today's market, you're going to spend a little bit more for a Replibit BDR appliance, but you're going to get a quantum leap in terms of performance, IOPS, you know, just stability and performance of workloads when you go to virtualize them on the appliances, and you're just going to have a terrific experience with the Replibit software platform when you're running on this hardware. A bit about the pricing. So this is kind of an eye chart a little bit, but let me walk you through it. So if you, as I mentioned, you could build your own BDR appliances with Replibit. As Philip mentioned, you know, you're not going to have the cost of a Windows Server license because Replibit runs on Linux. But these are the prices if you source the appliance directly from eFolder. The Mini 1000, which is the 1 terabyte model, starts out at $11.99. So that's your wholesale upfront cost for the appliance. You purchase it directly from eFolder, no distribution, just one tier. You purchase this appliance from us. Now, you can use these appliances, deploy them out to the client side, or you can actually buy some of the larger units and put them in, like the rack-mounted unit, and put it in your own colo and vault to yourself as an option. Okay, so that's an important thing to point out. And again, we make that process, if you're going to vault to yourself, really turnkey, because you've got a solution that's really spec'd for this application on both ends of the wire, if you will. Now, in terms of licensing the software and the cloud service, you have two choices. You have the endpoint-based subscription model. So many of you may be Replibit partners already, and you're just here to hear about the appliances themselves, but you may just be looking at this in general. So you can license the service starting at $60 a server at unit quantity 1, and that's a software license to protect a server, or $15 a month for a desktop. And then that includes all the cloud storage in the eFolder cloud. All right, you see that. So either 2 terabytes or 200 gigabytes, and that's all pooled at the partner level. So that's if you're going to our cloud. You can also do private cloud and vault to yourself, and that's $30 or $5. So that's endpoint-based licensing. Now, when we started shipping the Replibit appliances last week, what we also introduced is what we call storage-based licensing. And that basically, in a given storage tier, if we just say to start out with the 1 terabyte model, for $99 a month, wholesale to you. That includes unlimited workstation or server licenses and unlimited storage in the eFolder cloud with a 3-year cloud retention policy. So that's, when we're talking about how do you drive this solution into the small business market, your smallest clients, we're talking wholesale to you $99 a month, and that's your complete service cost. That includes the licenses and the cloud. And of course, it goes up gradually from there, based upon the different storage tiers. So this is a, pretty revolutionary in terms of eFolder. I mean, I think we as a company, we're always trying to find ways to make our pricing and packaging simpler. And I think we've got a winner here in terms of like the way this pricing is organized. So you can make the choice of either doing storage-based or endpoint-based licensing. You can mix and match. So there's no, so you don't need to decide one or the other. And what's really important to know is that when you license, either on a storage basis or an endpoint basis, what's required to license for the client side, everything else is free and included. So the vault, the appliance software itself, if you wanted to build your own BDR, or the vaulting capability, the software running in the target vault in your own colo, that's free and included, as is the global management capability of the product. So nothing else to license. Everything else is free and included. So you either license by the endpoint or license by the storage tier. And then what's important to understand with storage-based licensing is if you build your own BDRs, the pricing works the exact same way. You have these different storage tiers, and you just pay a wholesale fee a month, and that's how you can license it on an unlimited basis for servers and workstations. So that's kind of, quick triptych and tour of the appliances themselves and how the pricing and packaging works. To get started, if you're an existing eFolder partner, you just talk to your account manager. You can literally get in the door by buying one Replibit BDR appliance and getting started with licensing. So no minimums. The only minimums is one. So you can get started immediately. If you're not yet an eFolder partner, you can get started in the same way. So with that, let me dive into the Q&A. So let me just grab this first question here. And, if you've got a question for Philip specifically or a question specifically for me, try to call that out in your question. But let me dive in. We got a whole bunch of questions that have just come in. So I'm going to pop this thing out here and dig in. Let's see here. So Joseph says, tell me about $99 a month for unlimited backups. So if we just go back here, what that means is that, basically in a given client environment, of course, there is a logical and practical limitation on the number of workstations, laptops, and servers you can back up to the appliance if it's got 1 terabyte, naturally. Okay, but given within those constraints, for $99 a month, you can have any combination of desktop and server licenses, and that includes all of the backup and replication to the eFolder cloud. So that's what $99 includes. And then you just march right on up the line, and that's kind of how the pricing model works. So, okay. So if we vault to ourselves, okay, so Lolan asked, if we vault to ourselves, do we still need an appliance at the client site? And the answer is yes. So you need to have a local appliance in every case. It's, why, I mean, that's the way that the Replibit solution is architected. There are some image-based backup solutions like Acronis where you can, have different backup jobs that will go to different targets, and you can kind of point it to a cloud target on a standalone basis. That's not how Replibit is architected. So you, in all cases, need an appliance local, but you can build it yourself. You can source it from us. If you build it yourself, you don't have Windows licensing costs, and you don't have a cost for that actual appliance software. You just have the cost for the hardware. Okay, let me just Okay. So just a branding question. You know, so David wants to know, can we brand the E on the front of the Pro or the Mini? And that's not yet a capability we have. You know, what we try to do there is be a little light on the eFolder branding and make it, you know, somewhat kind of, we're talking to the partner but not talking to the end user, so to speak. But we don't have a capability of, say, doing like a customized branding run for partners. I mean, it's a great feature idea, great capability. We stand behind our long-standing, you know, desire to let partners, you know, put their brand front and center and first. And there's you know, branding capabilities in the Replibit management software and portal that are there. But you know, in terms of the appliance themselves, it's the two entry-level model, or the Mini and the Pro are branded with that eFolder E. So. So Brandon wants to know, what is the rule of thumb when sizing BDR appliances, 2x the current use space on systems? I mean, Philip, I don't know, do you have any sizing, you know, field-based experience on sizing, you know, how big of an appliance you need to put in for a client?
I usually use that 2x rule. Now, of course, with this, we can, you know, you can set it to keep, you can limit the number of incrementals, and of course the timing of the incrementals. So ultimately, you know, you can limit that, which is really nice, which is you know, why we like Replibit, or why initially we liked it. So I usually say about 2x, just because, you know, you don't want to get in trouble. But if you had if you had an office that didn't have a lot of movement, you could definitely go beneath that line. You just kind of really need to size up about the amount of deltas that they're having in a day, and you know, you can work some mathematics off of that. I don't use like an Excel spreadsheet. I know there's a lot of, I think eFolder even has a calculator out there, but normally I start at 2x, and I can scale up or down based on the actual client itself.
Yeah, and I think with the Pro and the Rack, you're definitely going to have the ability to be, you know, you're going to be able to judiciously deploy the storage. You notice here that the field upgrade packs are $12.99. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind. And we have produced a sizing calculator. It's nothing that fancy. It's an Excel spreadsheet basically, but you would, you know, plug in some basic parameters about the client's deployment, and you know, it tells you what, you know, here's what the recommended appliance is, and our systems engineers, you know, are adept at also consulting with, you know, partners about, you know, those initial deployments to be as you get your feet wet. So Robert wants to know, just is the Mini field upgradable? And the answer is no. So Steve just wants to know, you know, is Replibit multi-tenant? And the answer is yes. I mean, you know, the guy who founded Replibit is a guy named Andy Benzinger, and he used to run an MSP. He was one of the lead engineers of another BDR company that really pioneered the market, and he founded Replibit really to fix all of the different challenges that he saw in his first experience of deploying these at scale to MSP partners. But yeah, the product is built from the ground up for MSPs. So it's multi-tenant. It includes the global management portal. We have very deep ConnectWise integration in the product. And Philip also mentioned the capability earlier, which is, you know, nightly screenshot verification. That's a pretty key capability, and it goes to that whole, really that labor problem we're trying to solve, which is you don't want to be spending time, even with having a junior tech, you know, babysit your backups and going in and having to do manual checking of whether things are recoverable. And that nightly screenshot verification capability will do that nightly boot check on those backups and do a screenshot capture, and then you can drop that into your ConnectWise integration or your ConnectWise instance. So that's pretty key to, you know, wringing further labor out of the equation. So Lori asks, the appliances themselves, they have a 3-year product, 3-year, let's see here. Let me just, sorry, I didn't get the full question there. Let me dive in back here. So just Peter wants a clarification on storage-based pricing. And he says, is the storage-based service dependent and tied to the eFolder appliance or to the storage-based subscription used with our own existing appliance? I mean, basically, it's the amount of logical storage you're either getting on the eFolder appliance or on the appliance you build yourself. So it basically works the same on on a build your own or on the appliance you would source from eFolder. Just Joe wants a clarification on the pricing. All the pricing you see here is wholesale to the MSP. If you've never worked with eFolder before, we don't use two-tier distribution. We service nearly 3,000 MSP partners in a one-tier model. So partners come to us and source their software and cloud services and appliances directly from us. That's how we do it. So so just another question on just kind of some pricing details here. Lolan wants to know, is the $30 price point if you're vaulting to yourself? And that's just so it's clear, that's the monthly price, and that's the price if you're vaulting to yourself. $30 a server, $5 per desktop. Let's see. And just so it's clear, and the vault, there's nothing extra for the vaulting software. So Brad, you were asking about the cost of the vaulting software. When you pay that $30, or the $30 or that $5 a month, you're licensing for the endpoint, and then you can vault to yourself, and there's no cost for the vault software running in your own colo on your own hardware or on, say, a Replibit rack appliance. Okay, so let me just scoot back here. So David just wants to know, is there an NFR? There is not an NFR, but we are exploring, how we would do that. And, so the answer is no, but, to get started, the good news is on this is that there's, the way we do virtually everything at eFolder is everything's month to month. So you could, plunk down for the $1,200 for a mini and get started at $99 a month, pretty affordably kick the tires on this solution. But we do understand that partners want something slightly different to do, kind of an NFR tech test. But so stay tuned on that one. Lots of questions here, so I'm just trying to, with just a couple of minutes left here, cherry pick. So Brandon just wants to know about pre-seeding. Yes, eFolder does pre-seeding. I mean, Philip, we want to talk a little bit about your experience with pre-seeding?
Yeah, it's worked smooth. We do it a couple of different ways. Of course, you can go around the portal and you can order a drive that comes to us, and then has shipping labels back. You get the seed and then you ship it back to the eFolder data center. But really what we've been doing, because we're on fiber optics and we have a lot of bandwidth, we've actually been just going out to the, most of our clients don't have the bandwidth we have, so we'll just take one of our drives out and we'll bring it back to our office and we'll seed it back to you guys from our office, just so we don't have to ship, and depends on how much data it is, but by the time you do all the shipping and all that other stuff, we can actually have it delivered over the internet quicker than we could ship it with really no expense for shipping costs and all that kind of stuff. So primarily that's what we do. We plug it into our network and just upload the seed from our place.
Right, and so that's clearly one way to do it, but what a lot of partners will do is they'll order a pre-seed drive, and we'll ship it to them. They'll roll out to the customer location and seed the initial data onto a drive and then ship it to us. And then every day we're processing scores or hundreds of drives in our data center just in case you've got bandwidth limitations. It sounds like BIS has that covered. But let's see. We have time for just a couple more questions here. Let me just make sure I don't miss anybody who was kind of first to ask.
Yeah, Ted, I think one comment that I think is important. I know there's some guys who haven't tried your company or anything, and I'm just a guy working in a smaller market, and I've got to have a great solution stack. One of the big things for me with eFolder was the people, their willingness to make it happen, and then B, really the range of products. And I know we're talking about this, and this is a big deal, and it's kind of a game changer in a lot of ways because nobody else on the market has this. And but just overall, your solution stack that you guys offer fits MSP. And you can, and the flexibility of it. I can put it in my data center. I can put it in your data center. I can put it between two different clients' offices. Say they've got a lot of bandwidth, and I want to back one up to the other. Just really the overall flexibility is very, very, very nice in being able to devise a solution that works.
Right. So. That's great. I mean, I think it's a great point to mention. I think there's always a cost of doing business with vendors. You want as few vendors as humanly possible and have doing business with the best vendors that help you be profitable, right? And so really what we try to think about is that we're delivering a platform for MSPs to protect data, protect uptime, and to enable employees to be highly productive with their data wherever they go, whether mobile or in the office or from any kind of computer. And so, we have a range of different backup solutions, range of different BDR solutions, and our Anchor file sync product for file syncing and collaboration. And really, this allows you to really, from one vendor, have one throat to choke and have multiple solutions. Maybe just one kind of final question just about business continuity. I mean, Philip, do you have any rules of thumb? I think Robert just asked about, kind of pricing. I mean, how do you price and package, or how do you bake in business continuity? I mean, are there some rules of thumb in terms of pricing and packaging?
Yeah, we have two different strategies on that. Because some of the guys, we basically offer three packages, and one is our tool chest, if you will, with our tools, and it comes with unlimited help desk. And then the next level of that is our tools, unlimited help desk, and unlimited on-site. And then the final one that we bundle all kinds of services in is what we call total care. It also includes projects, and it includes a BDR, and it includes cloud. We call it Cloud Sync. It's the Anchor product. And it includes hosted exchange, and just really I just layer it up with just benefit after benefit after benefit. And again, and I go back to saying that once I have all of the pieces, I can give a service level that is greater to the client and cheaper for me, because I don't have to wait on anybody to do what I need to do. I have, basically it's a matter of just executing and getting it done. So that's one of the strategies, is getting them what we call on total care. And then the other strategy is where, land and expand. We've got them on a lower package, and then we go back around and we talk about really the difference between, and usually we'll spin up a server. We'll have a server that is, in the office that has an image on it, and we talk about, take them through the scenario of downtime and start up a server in front of them and show them how quickly, and it kind of lets them live through the thought of, if I didn't have my server, and wow, in 10 minutes I'm up and working, the server's booted, and we're all working again. So that's those are the two strategies that we use.
Yeah, and I think I would say the other a couple of things we see is we see some partners using business continuity as kind of a wedge to get their foot in the door with clients because there's a lot of pain in these areas, and it's the sort of thing where you can come in and solve one problem, solve it extremely well, and then start picking up different aspects of their business. And I think just kind of on a very practical basis, what we see is partners taking, our wholesale costs and, either doubling or tripling it. We like to see them, there's lots of partners very successful in tripling that wholesale price, because after, you will have, even if it's the best behaved BDR product on the market, you are going to have labor, right? You are going to have to capture back some, some labor costs in that solution. So if you want to end up with 50, 60, 70% recurring gross margins on this aspect of your managed service, you really need to go to like a almost 2.5 to 3x markup on our wholesale price. That's what we see. Some partners are a little more aggressive, and a lot of times, like Philip said, really the main model, however, is that you've got an all-in managed services solution where business continuity is one of the pillars, and there's not a discrete line item for BDR or business continuity priced out in their solution, just because it's like a table stake. It's like you're signing up for the package where I'm guaranteeing your uptime. Whether it's an everyday disaster or a massive disaster, I'm going to guarantee I can get your computers and servers back up and running fast. You make that promise. You don't focus a lot on the price point of it. You have a total value proposition to the client. But, partners will have to go in behind the scenes, of course, in their own pricing calculators and build up how that works. And each component, you usually have a software service cost, and you have to account for that and then make, of course, a markup and think about that. So hopefully that's helpful guidance. We see kind of everything under the sun, but 2.5 to 3x markup is really where you want to be thinking about these sorts of solutions. But with that, what I want to do is just kind of make sure we end here on time. If you have, follow-up, please work with your eFolder account manager or talk to one of the eFolder partner consultants who will be reaching out to you if you're not yet doing business with us. And finally, I'd like to just thank Philip Long for sharing all of his insights with what he's doing in his business. So, Philip, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Ted, and, I'm always glad to help.
Okay. Well, everybody, this was today's Replibit BDR Appliance partner discussion and launch event. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We were joined today by Philip Long, CEO of Business Information Solutions, and I'm Ted Holsey, Vice President of Marketing at eFolder. Thanks a lot for joining us, and have a great day.